Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's her story. Hello, Ollie. This letter is my first one. It's good it fell through the cracks with my first series of messages because I didn't say what was important to say at that time. Yeah, I never got an email from you. I checked all my folders. There was nothing that came in. I've donated before. I've also kind of been a pest on your channel 5 or so years ago, insisting that people find their way to health through recovery programs instead of focusing on the narcissist. I really like Jerry Wise family systems therapy on YouTube, and I think he's an expert at overcoming family pathology. I think you're really good at discerning situations, probably an expert. I'm going to try really hard to write this efficiently as well, so it's easy to read and you have your take and your opinions about this. I'm not working and I need that money right now, but I have faith in courage. That whatever you have to say will be of value to me and potentially other people too. Plus, I like you and your politics, and you're a few years older than me and kind of handsome and smart, so I want your opinions. Alright, what I look like shouldn't matter one bit. Okay, like, you shouldn't want my opinions for what I look like. Feels like a bit of like, don't do, because I'm telling you, what that is, that's kind of hoovering right there. So, I don't want to make this letter a mile long or go on about the unimportant minutia. My problem is not thinking I matter or my story matters, so I'm going to do my best to give you a big picture of my disaster of life thus far at 41 years old. I also want to try to write things out because my only celebrity hero is Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he says writing out your life and how it went wrong is good to help my future. Plus, you don't have much in the queue, and I did fall through the cracks the first time I attempted to hear your opinion. Yeah, like I said, I didn't get any email. I didn't get an email from you. And what, believe it or not, what is really coincidental is as odd as as different as your first name is. I got an email that same day with somebody with the exact same first name at almost the exact same time. and like, that's why I kind of got a little confused too. So when you said something fell through the crack, I'm like, no, I know I did your video. And then when I looked, I'm like, oh, there's two people with your same first name. I'm like, and her name's pretty unique, so it is one of the odder things I've seen. I just saw confirmation today that I probably have or have a personality disorder. I'm going to be honest with you already, Anonymous. Just based on how you opened up this letter, I was already seeing a red flag. Because you're basing my opinion on looks, and you said you've already admitted you were a pest, that you didn't agree with my tactics and bringing up other people. And it seems already you have a tendency to over-explain, so let's see. I've considered it before, but I never saw confirmation. I was never diagnosed. I've been doing sand play therapy for around 5 years with the same therapist, and I've been asking her, and she tells me not to think about it at all. I don't know what sand play therapy is. But if you've been going to the same therapist for 5 years and you haven't progressed at all, and you're just, after 5 years, realizing you have a personality disorder, you have the wrong therapist. It's not that she's a bad therapist. It's that sand play is the most integrative therapy technology currently known for medicating psychological splits from abuse at a pre-verbal age. Hold on. I gotta. What is sand play? Sand play therapy. I don't even know what sand play therapy is. You're literally playing in sand. Sand play is a powerful psycho-spiritual method for accessing the unconscious in a way that brings about profound change. Sand play therapy is based on the work of Donna Kalf and Carl Jung. Inherent sand play is the idea that the psyche, given the right conditions, is self-healing. So you're literally just, those sand, like those little miniature sandboxes, and making like little sand communities and get ready. Listen. I like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not any of that. Okay. But infantilizing you about your problems is feeding into your personality disorder. It's exactly what it's doing. Again, I stress to you again, I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not certified. Everything on here is my opinion. But I'm telling you, this is bullshit. I'm looking at pictures of people just building their little sandboxes for 5 years. You've been playing with sand for 5 years? I've always struggled to work, but I've had psychosis and mental breakdowns, which in a personality disorder world is known as histrionics. Histrionics usually done in order to gain some kind of advantage or to get your way. I thought it was due to the abuse I suffered, and I wasn't sure it was anything more than stubborn, complex PTSD. I've been arrested 2 to 3 times while going to school and been institutionalized more times than that, but my memory is foggy. I had huge breakdowns, all 6 years apart, 1999, 2005, then 2011 before I filed for disability. They lasted months, and the psychosis reached a crescendo around Christmas each year. I was only institutionalized in 2005 and 2011, but several times. I didn't know if it was demons or what the hell was wrong with me. Breakdown 6 years apart following a pattern. 666. It was scary. I've always struggled with every kind of relationship too, to be honest. Narcissism has been a common factor in a lot of those relationships on the other party's part. Today I was looking at my determination for disability income that I received in 2013, and I read the findings carefully for the first time. The therapist's feedback that helped determine my disability noted an unspecified personality disorder, and that it's impossible for me to act appropriately in a work environment. It's histrionic personality disorder. You have this need to act out and to perform to get your way, okay, for whatever reason, whether you don't want to really be in the work environment, somebody's making you feel jealous or angry, or just histrionics. The constant breakdown where everything's got to then turn around and be about you. That's histrionic personality disorder. It recommended I do unskilled work and have minimal superficial contact with people. Shitty thing to read today after my 6th job in 4 years just ended the day after Christmas, because it's still true. It's also freeing to read in a way because I know it's a real problem and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can fix my problems of being inappropriate in a work setting. I might not be able to fix it in personal relationships, but maybe. It was the best job I ever had, and I made more money on 100% commission, 5% selling furniture than I have ever made in my life from any job, and I have a college degree. So my recovery process started after my last huge psychosis manic episode, spanning from October 2011 to March 2012, with the crescendo on Christmas again for the third time. I got institutionalized, but not before I was slapped with criminal misconduct during my mania for demanding a huge, tall Arab DJ play Britney Spears for me in an empty nightclub so I can dance my troubles away. And he put his hands on me, and I slapped him. Then I got arrested. So he wanted something to make about yourself. You didn't get away, and that's what triggers the histrionics. That's not something you can't control. That's you just being. That's just you being a spoiled histrionic. And that's not even in a work environment. That was out in a club. The histrionic needs to make everything about them. And when they don't make it about them, they are going to ruin everybody's day. Everybody's day. And the problem is, once people catch on to what you're doing, nobody wants to deal with you. Nobody wants to deal with the histrionic. It's draining. It's emotional vampirism. That was in Oklahoma City. A few months later, I was homeless, and my very sick borderline mother had come to live in Albuquerque so I could live in a homeless shelter, since it's easier being homeless in Albuquerque and there are more programs than in Oklahoma. I also shaved my head during my episode, and I was heavier than I'd been in my life because I had been living with a man 26 years older than me, trying to finish my interior design degree. I didn't like sleeping with him, so I drink and eat and only sleep with him after a bottle of red wine because I wanted a father. I think that's why I put on a lot of weight, and I was about 200 pounds, but then I lost about 25 to 35 during my manic months. I came to Albuquerque, and while staying in my mother's one-bedroom apartment and still manic, I set up a Plenty of Fish profile, and the first person I agreed to meet was my most significant relationship. He knew my situation before we met, right, because the only ones coming in for borderline histrionics is Captain Save-A-Ho. Captain Save-A-Ho will put up with your histrionics for a while. For a while. I was wearing a wig and I was still heavy, and he got me to meet up with him after many requests, insisting he had an extra room and he would potentially be able to help me. Captain Save-A-Ho is always ready to help. He was a jerk right off the bat, but he kind of looked like a version of Leonardo DiCaprio with a huge distended gut, and he met where I asked to meet. 45 minutes outside of town, and he was generous, buying really nice Indian food and a pot of chai tea. He was 40 and I was 33 at the time. I got into a homeless shelter a few days later on his side of Albuquerque. He sort of lingered around, telling me I was ugly and fat, and he was embarrassed to be seen with me. He'd have all these positive things sprinkled in, and he would say that. I'd call him in a dark moment from the shelter, and he'd give me pet talks. Imagine your mind is a bucket of dirty water. Think of how grateful for you are for the roof over your head, and fill your mind with clean water like that, and pretty soon all you will have is clean water and your life will get better. He'd invite me to come over to his house to watch movies and insist I'd feel better if we cuddled. He had kind of a smell to him that was in his truck and his home, and it creeped me out by cuddling with him, but I was dumb, lost, broken, and I believed him when he said it would help us both feel better if we cuddled in a cot in his huge living room. He'd do crazy things, like, for instance, I got food stamps shortly after getting into the homeless shelter, but I couldn't prepare food, and all my meals were given to me there. He said, let's go get snacks and have a movie day. I'd agree because I had no direction, and I didn't have the inner faculties to know where to look for a job when I was ashamed of myself, reeling from my losses, and I had no hair on my head. So we went to Walmart and I was picking out snacks, but I was ready to read the ingredients on a package of cookies to make sure it wasn't too toxic. And he reached over and grabbed my stomach and shook it and said, "Who wants cookies? Who needs cookies?" in front of the other customers. It really fucked me up, but I just went along with him and bought his snacks and watched the stupid movies until my curfew at the homeless shelter. He took me home. Then one day he brought me to his apartment and asked me to move in. I was really hesitant. He said my responsibilities would be cleaning his dishes, home, and laundry. He said I couldn't work either and I had to help him with his plaster casting art projects too. I asked if I could bring my Boston Terrier, who was currently with my mom, and he said it could live on the porch of a 7th floor balcony. Buddha couldn't live on the porch, and it was cold. He took me home, and I hadn't given him an answer. When I got home, he called me furious and said the offer is closed. I hadn't thought it was a good idea anyway. Then he drives me up to the mountain with snow on the ground. A long drive in his Dolphin RV. We explored a little bit, but I was cold and I think he made some tea in the RV and whipped out his dick when we were sitting next to each other in the back. He said, "Just touch it a little, like a pedophile or something." I didn't do anything but say no. I stopped talking to him after that incident. We had known each other maybe 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, Captain Save-A-Ho is always in a rush to reel you in. And Captain Save-A-Ho looks for damn women in distress. He's attracted to women who have personality disorders and the histrionics and all that because he thinks he can control it and save it because he knows you're fucked up. About 4 months later, the homeless shelter had me go live with a severely autistic 19-year-old girl to help look after her and get me in an apartment funded by the shelter. I was so lonely. I was so lonely without the shelter women and the meals that felt like family, and she was tracking her fecal matter across the apartment on her feet and rubbing peanut butter on the walls. I was tasked with coaching her to be more functional, and she also had an in-home assistant that would help her budget, meal prep, and do laundry. It was overwhelming, but I made it through months of being pressured to find a job by my case manager, and I was too depressed to know where to go or what to do. I was so fucked up. I was nearly catatonic. I kept eating shitty 7-Eleven food or pizza and think about suicide. It was summer in the desert, and the girl had the controls for the apartment in her bedroom and wouldn't turn on the air, so I could only sleep during the cold hours with the windows open from 4 a.m. to 12-ish. Suddenly, from 4 a.m. to 12-ish? Okay, I got you. So during the morning. Suddenly, Jason writes me an email. He asked me how I was doing. I was so fucked up, I apologized for being a bad friend to him. We got together soon after that. He came over and I made him laugh with my jokes and we watched a movie. He talked about the girl who was about 6 feet tall, very disturbed and very large, and how he wanted to put a refrigerator box over her body, cut a slit in it, and fuck her. Jesus Christ. Then one day he had me come over to his place again, and we went over a laundry list of all the women he ever liked or were beautiful, and he talked about how he had a chance to love around 30 years old. He also had a crack addiction for about 10 years after he dropped out of college his senior year. So, near the end of his crack addiction, at 30-ish, he was on a porch with a 14-year-old homeless girl who was begging to have sex with him. Jesus. He said she was beautiful, but he told her no because it was illegal. But he was telling me how much he wished he did it. You know what I did? I didn't run for the hills like a normal girl. No, I told him that he doesn't see how good he is because no matter is she wanted it or not, she was 14 years old. He said, well, she was tall. Then I blocked it out that we had that conversation. He was still ashamed to be seen with me because he was a janitor at that apartment building and he knew the other workers. They gave him that apartment for super cheap because he'd been living in his RV on the property and the apartment was condemned anyway. I finally had a job at a restaurant and I was a wreck, more than I'd ever been because I was 34 and not where I thought I'd be in life. The idea of being a career woman or having kids was almost a lost cause. I was so close to graduating, but it all fell apart because of my breakdown the year before. I ended up failing my server's test at a Village Inn because I was nervous. Jason was there to pick up the pieces. He took me on a camping trip. Nothing in the world makes me as happy as my stints at summer camp as a child. I wasn't homesick, I was free. So I jumped at the opportunity to go camping with him no matter that I didn't feel good and my life was a mess. So we drive to a beautiful location and it's quite the adventure with the whole RV shaking and rattling before we even get out to go on our hike to some hot springs. He has me sit in the back with him again. He whipped it out again. I did what he asked, and it wasn't romantic and it wasn't special. I felt like a piece of garbage, but it was a nice hike afterwards. I was a 34-year-old woman with my hair starting to grow back, but I felt like a child and used up worthless, like I had to do what he asked. Right, and that was the scenario he was picking up. I guarantee you he's a child molester. I guarantee you he didn't just walk away from that 14-year-old. On the hike back, I could barely get back up the mountain because of its high elevation with a little bit of grappling and shifting sand, and I was out of shape. He gave me another pep talk. He laughed. I cried. He made me laugh. He told me, if you get up this mountain, are you going to be able to do anything in this? You are going to be able to do anything in this world that you set your mind to. I stopped complaining and got up the mountain, and that's all it took. I was in love, or trauma bonded rather, to a sociopath type of narcissist. On the way home a couple days later, he played this really cool audiobook, and I played in the back of the RV listening. It was about how to manifest things, so I really badly needed a new mattress because the one they gave me busted and my back hurt. When I got home at night, I did the manifest of a Tempur-Pedic mattress, and the next morning was a Monday, and my case manager called me to come by to see if there was anything I needed in a client's home that died. The whole apartment complex had clients from the shelter sprinkled throughout. By 10 a.m. in the morning, I had my own newish Tempur-Pedic mattress, and the old lady who died did not die on the mattress. My narcissist was magic. I called him right away, and I thought he'd be thrilled for me and happy to hear from me and glad about the magic, but he was really disinterested. He was always pretty disinterested in me. I told him that I didn't think he really liked me and started to break up, but he said he was just stressed about his shitty job and laughed at me for being silly and convinced me to continue. I loved him already, like an idiot. This could easily go into a long victim-y thing instead of what I want it to be, instead of who I want to be moving forward. So I will just say that the relationship ended up being the catalyst for change that I needed at the age of 33, even though it spanned and finally ended very violently when I was 39. I didn't attack him, but when he attacked me, I bit him, and he didn't let go, and I bit him and he didn't let go, so I bit even harder and he attacked me again and again, dragging me, picking me up by my ankles, dropping me on my back when I spent days of my life at that point giving him really deep back rubs, never getting any in return. I tried to file a restraining order the last 5 days. I tried to press criminal charges, but he looked like the victim, even though he wasn't. But hey, I wasn't exactly innocent either, because I was a mature woman with a sense of self who could just repeatedly go my own separate way when he wouldn't love me the way I wanted to be loved. I forgive him. I am ashamed of my behavior, and I was abusive too as the years went on with him. I became sicker and more pathological. I've been out of that for 2.5 years now. I haven't moved on exactly. No new man, but I don't know when I will be healthy be in a healthy relationship, and I don't want a man until I know I could be good for him for sure. He'd have to be very different from the man that man was for me to be able to be good with him. You shouldn't even be thinking about this stuff right now. Okay, what's odd to me is you were with him for he didn't abuse you for years, and then so 6 years later he finally snapped, which kind of tells me you were probably pushing his buttons in a histrionic fit. Since 2013, I started recovery programs, first at church. Then I did a solid 3 years of adult children of alcoholics. That might have only made me focus on my problems more, and possibly made me more self-consumed and focused on the abuse I endured as a child. I feel like I was sexually abused and a lot, but I had a hard time. I tried hard to pinpoint what happened. I think it was all pre-verbal, and there was a lot of violence too that I can remember at 3 years old. My grandmother commanding that my Uncle Chuck keep my mother from taking me out of the house. So they both grabbed an arm and pulled like a tug-of-war toddler in the foyer of a really big home my grandparents owned in Upper Arlington, Ohio. At this last job that I loved in a lot of ways, I had dreams right before I freaked out that my uncle was a big fat exploded can of ready dough with hair and moles and hairy moles which he had on his back, and leaky stuff from the tip fucking me as a very, very little baby. I don't know if that's real, but I think my grandpa diddled all his kids when they were pre-verbal, and it's a pathology that continues. I was a baby in that nightmare house, and there is a 12-year age difference between me and him. In the dream, I was a little girl, and I went along with it even though I didn't want to. I felt about 2. In the dream, an adult stepped forward and prayed to God and asked if this is why I have the problems I have in life. I looked back at my doe-dick uncle, and it turned into a demon with 2 different colored eyes. It threw me to the ground in a gray reality, and it was more real than reality. It said 2 words to me before I called out to Jesus and woke up. I know it was a demon. I don't know what it said to me, and it certainly doesn't matter as much as God and his power to help me heal. My family is so sick. None of those 5 children of my maternal grandpa and grandma are functional adults. They're all severely stunted. My mom was the scapegoat, and she was the worst of all of them, but I've chosen, as best I can, the path of forgiveness. I have a fantasy if I just stop trying to change her or criticize her or be mad at her for the wreckage of my life as a result of her, then maybe I can love her in some way that is no longer making her a bigger monster than she is. And she is one. My grandparents are sick too, so sick that I can't really get into it easily anymore. But my grandpa is 90-something and rich, and all the kids beg for money all the time. He is a dragon on the zodiac. He has all his faculties, but he's had cancer a few times, and he keeps beating it. I don't hate him. I think something really bad happened to him in an only child household on Long Island early in the last century. Both his parents were raging alcoholics. I think he got into Freemasonry or something and got the idea to sexually abuse all his kids. I have no proof. My mother insists she has memories, but she is a liar, and she's lied about me lots of times too. She's got to be a total failure with no friends, no career, no good boyfriends, only alky violent natives that she thinks she loves here and there. I mean, it has to be the product of something, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a product of narcissism. Whether it's sexual abuse, it sounds like it probably is. What you're remembering, I mean, I don't know if that's real or not. Okay, I don't know. But look, your family dynamic is enough to cause you to have this personality disorder. That's for sure. Keeping any of them around is what's going to keep driving you further into a hole. I can't try to solve it anymore like I used to when I loved Jason. He was truly a nightmare, but he was my catalyst for freedom, and so are you, Ollie. Listening to a lot of the stuff you grew up with in your house is like what went on in my grandpa's house, and I lived with them plenty from 0 to 4. They stole from me, my mother. From 12, and then again from 14 to 18, I lived with them again. And only them. I mean, pathological psychopaths. My grandma has mental illness in her family, and she decided long ago she'd sell her virginity for a wealthy suitor before living in poverty for love. I really can't blame her. She came from fucked up, so she married fucked up. But she was always taken care of and could masquerade as virtuous. Everyone is still alive except their oldest son. He was gay and did meth, but he was a professional businessman. He was dead by his mid-40s when AIDS finally took over after a long 20-something years of HIV. I love my family as much as I am able. My grandma gave me $500 for Christmas, and I bought myself a nice emerald ring with diamonds on the side to remember her by. She wouldn't give me a ring. I asked, why would you buy a ring with that? Like, you're saying you're not working, you need your money, but as soon as you got $500 at Christmas, you went out and bought an emerald ring with it? Why are you trying to remember her by anything? Why are you trying to remember narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths? They're the reason you are the way you are. You can play in all the sandboxes you want, do all the sand therapy and sand villages all you want. As long as you keep these people in your life, you have no chance of getting any better. None. Zero. She wouldn't give me a ring. I've asked for decades to have something to carry with me because she did love me as much as she was able. Wow, as much as she was able. Wow, how short are you willing to sell yourself? I mean, Christ. She prays for me, and her life might not continue past this year. I needed a ring to remember her by and pretend that she gave it to me as a token of love. You needed a ring to remember you by? Your life is a token to remember her by. The condition of your life should be all you need to remember your narcissist by. That's it. So I bought it with her money, even though I don't have a job. Anyway, it's late, and I don't know that I really said what I wanted to. I couldn't stand to go down a victim-y path anymore, as much as I struggle with appropriateness and my non-specified personality disorder that looks a lot like borderline behaviors. Yeah, borderline and histrionic is very similar. The difference is the borderline could be more reserved and more cunning, where the histrionic is the breakdown, the emotion, the vampirism. It's histrionic personality disorder. I'm healing. I just wanted to say hi and to hear you read my letter, and thank you for the work you've done in calling out narc stuff and political stuff and fighting for the truth as hard as you do. Truly anonymous. Nothing is going to change, Anonymous, as long as you keep these people in your life. Okay? The only thing you need to remember your narcissist by is their abuse. Okay? And I'm telling you, open this whole thing up like I saw it in the first couple sentences. Red flags, red flags, red flags, red flags with you. Okay, you use your sexuality. You think you got to use sexuality to get people to like you, and then the second things don't go your way and you're uncomfortable or you don't get what you want, here comes the emotional outbursts. And you're saying you need money, but you go out and you buy a ring with this money your grandmother gave you to remember her by. You got a whole lifetime of abuse to remember your narcissist by. You sure as shit didn't need to fucking waste that money on something that could have went for something actually you could have used, that could have actually have helped you. And again, I'm going to close by saying this. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not certified. This is all opinion. But this sand therapy for 5 years is nonsense. Knock it off. Because all that's doing is keeping you stuck in the sand, quicksand, and you're going to drown in it unless you cut all these people out. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much, Anonymous, for your contribution and your story and your honesty. I understand. You know, it had to be difficult to write this out and to admit that you do have a personality disorder and that you are a big part of the problem. So that's why I'm not yelling and screaming and calling you a piece of garbage, because you're being honest about it and you're actually coming to me wanting help. And I'm telling you, the first thing you need to do is cut all these people out. And remember, you don't need anything to remember the narcissist by except the abuse they put you through. Period. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to have a private video made, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you guys, all of this goes away. And Google and YouTube are trying to make that happen sooner than later. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, follow me on the library app, which links are also provided in the description box as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.